Hey, podcast world, here is a hint to who we have on as a guest today. Ready, Lee?
I'm ready, Rob.
Okay, here's the hint. Do 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 do.
It's hammer time.
It's hammer time.
It's hammer time. Now, do we have the rights to hum that song? Is
Well,
that
you know
okay?
what? I think if MC Hammer sent us a cease and desist order for it,
Yeah.
we probably would. I'm guessing
Okay. Yeah.
because
If that happens, we will come back on and let the whole podcast world know.
I don't think we have our legal budget
Yeah.
is such that it could stand a legal action from someone
You
of
know,
his stature.
I'm thinking you have made it whenever MC Hammer listens to your podcast.
I would agree, and files a lawsuit against you.
Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
if that happens,
Uh-huh.
kudos.
Do 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 do.
Do.
The reason that we are bringing up MC Hammer today is we have a guest on who coincidentally shares his last name, but I think that's where everything kind of ends between them. We have Brent Hammer on today from Grange Insurance.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great conversation today. He is really working on all the innovation for Grange with some additional folks surrounding him, of course, but he is really leading the way and trying to take them into the next chapter of innovation.
Brent Hammer is the innovation officer at Grange Insurance and basically runs the innovation team for that regional insurer out of Columbus, Ohio.
Very excited to talk to Brent. I'm interested in what all they are doing within Grange. You know how it's going to affect their claims and maybe their underwriting. I think it'll be a great conversation today.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting the kind of position that these innovation teams are in today. They're newer in the insurance world, and they have a big task. And how they go about doing it is just an interesting question. We've talked with Amica and heard about that from Adam Kostecki, and it'll be interesting to hear how Grange goes about it.
Well, and think about all that they have to choose from, from AI, from satellite imagery, from workflows internally and externally. They have so much to work on and to choose from. It's just a big job to sort through all the things that are out there. And I think that'll be a question. What do they do? How do they sort through all the technology and all the startup companies? How do they do that?
Well, why don't we find out?
I think that's great.
There's only one way to do that, and let's jump into our interview without further ado. Our interview with Brent Hammer. You might say it's hammer time. Hey, podcast world. We are here today with our guest, a special guest from Ohio, Mr. Brent Hammer from Grange Insurance. How you doing, Brent?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good, good. Where in Ohio are you?
Yeah, we are right home of the Buckeyes, Columbus, Ohio.
Is Columbus the biggest city in Ohio?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think at one point Cleveland and Cincinnati were larger, but I think Columbus just recently has surpassed them in population. And yeah, the city's growing like crazy. I actually grew up here, and you would not recognize the campus area or the downtown even from 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, it's I love to come to Columbus and what an kind of insurance capital,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We've got neighbors to the north and to the east and the west who definitely we go toe to toe against.
Yeah. So tell us, give us what your title is.
Sure thing. So I am the innovation officer. So pretty simple title. And in that capacity, I have also a small team. So we're a team of 3 people who form our core innovation team. And we're responsible first and foremost for continuing to proliferate a culture of innovation at the enterprise. So really tapping into our associates, associate-led innovation ideas. And then secondarily, and what we've really been focusing on for the last 3 to 4 or 5 months has been engaging externally in the InsureTech space, trying to identify those strategically aligned startups, help the business evaluate them, and then ultimately partner with them and operationalize and iterate on their solutions.
So, how did you make your way to be the innovation officer at Grange? Are you new to the company, or what's your story, real quick?
Yeah, that's a good question. I still think about that sometimes at night before I go to sleep and close my eyes. But my background is in finance, and I've actually been with the Grange enterprise for 13 years now, and have worn numerous hats across the enterprise function. Most recently, I was the controller for one of our affiliate companies, Integrity Insurance, and they're based in Appleton,
Right,
Wisconsin.
right.
And I guess to give a short answer and not to bore, innovation is something I've always been passionate about. And about a year, 2 years ago, I had conveyed to my boss that I was interested. I felt like I'd kind of saturated the vertical in the controller role, which I'd been in for 6 years at that point, and expressed an interest in innovation. And she obliged and was fantastic, and actually gave me opportunities to start to engage with startups, to learn about them, to run innovation events with associates. And at that same time, Grange was having conversations about really making a deliberate investment in the innovation space, and understanding the need to partner with and engage these innovative new companies that were popping up in the space, to help us execute on our vision as a company.
So, you use the term innovation a lot. Define what that means for you guys at Grange.
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. So I think you would get different answers depending on who you spoke to, but we really view innovation not necessarily as something that is brand spanking new, super slick technology. For us, innovation is any even incremental step that is going to help improve the experience for our policyholders, our customers, or our independent agents. So we are also exclusive in our distribution through our independent agent partners.
So whenever you were working on the innovation, you were talking about how you work on internal and external.
Mhm.
What do you mean by internal innovation?
Yeah, great point. So, or great question. So, associate-led innovation and just innovation, the culture in general is so critical. If our associates aren't aware of what we're doing, aren't excited about trying new things, no one's sort of pushing them off kilter a little bit. Um, that's not an environment where what we're trying to do, to try new things, to bring external companies in, and have our associates partner with them, it's not going to thrive in that space. And so we are very proactive about engaging our associates. We actually have innovation wars. So we'll have our associates come in. Anyone in the company can participate in it. They normally last an entire day, and we'll tee up a topic for them and break folks up into groups. They'll go into their rooms, ideate, in some circumstances, even create a prototype, and then they'll come back to our senior leadership team and pitch those ideas. And that's really how it got started. And when we started, we reached an inflection point over a year ago where, instead of us having to try to get people to sign up for the event, associates and department leaders started coming to us and saying, "Hey, can you do this for my department?" Um,
Wow.
we hit that tipping point, and that was really the catalyst for our CEO and our leadership team to say, "Hey, we need a formal innovation team," because up until that point, it was very much volunteer driven and grassroots efforts.
The idea of a formal innovation team is very interesting to us. I think at many companies, innovation is kind of ad hoc,
Hmm.
and maybe somebody has an innovative idea, or maybe there's an innovative character who's on staff or what have you. But
Hmm.
what you guys are trying to do is to make it a formalized um, process, a formalized department inside of your company,
Hmm.
not just something that just chases down cool stuff, but that is broader than that and more significant than that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a great way to outline it. So I would say, in addition to making sure that we're communicating to our associates, we're continuing to cultivate a culture where people can take risks, can throw crazy ideas out there. One of the things that we thought was really important is we found a new startup would come onto our radar. They would have a really cool solution that we think aligned strategically, but what they would do is blow up 20 people on LinkedIn, and we'd start 10, 12 different communication threads throughout the organization. Some would die, some would go up, further up the chain. And forming the formal innovation team, what we want to do and what we're doing now is one door in and out to the organization, to the key stakeholders within the business, and connecting them, being that conduit between the founders of the startups and the key stakeholders within the business. And so now we're really trying to, free up time and provide a service for our business leaders so that they're not getting pinged directly. They can forward those notes to me and my team, and we'll handle it from there. And then it also helps the startups and the founders, because in doing that, we can have one voice back to them on where we stand, and also really drive the speed of the communication with them as well. So another thing that we augment our innovation team with is we've got dedicated resources, not full time, but dedicated resources from legal and from our procurement departments. And we were very, very deliberate up front to set an expectation with our legal and our procurement departments that we can't treat this like a normal vendor. These are startup companies. We need to be quick. We need to be nimble. We need to have T-shirt size NDAs and statements of work that are going to work for them, that we can to enable the speed of the interaction.
I love that. I think that's great. We've actually been a part of multiple pilots at the same time with single companies because of this issue. There were a lot of people who were being reached out to by the startup companies, and so they just kind of took it and ran. But it
Mhm.
sounds like y'all are really funneling it so that you can get the most out of everything you do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then the other aspect too is that we are making sure that we're approving success criteria for every POC and pilot we do, so that we have a similar or consistent rigor to how we're judging items, and how they move forward, or how they get put on hold. And that I think has been really great as well, because prior to that, you could have very subjective measures. We really try to take a scientific method to things rather than a gut feel, in terms of our POCs being successful, and are the solutions doing what we thought and think they could do.
So you mentioned startups frequently a few minutes ago,
Mhm.
and how does that fit in? What are you doing with startups? Why do you bring that up? Why are startups so important to you?
Yeah, I think it's really important to augment your thinking, and get diversity in thought. And the startup companies bring that in two ways. One, they don't have the biases, and that maybe the decision makers within a carrier have developed over time. And I don't say bias in a bad way. It's just a preferred way of doing things, a preferred way of thinking. So they don't have any of those biases. There's freer thinking. And in addition to that, they're not always insurance companies. Sometimes they're technology companies.
Right.
And when you can combine the domain expertise of someone who has a career in insurance, and ideate together with someone who can really articulate what a new emerging technology is capable of doing, bringing together the art of and the science, and educating the business on the art of the possible, is really powerful. When you start to see the gears in our executives' heads turn when they're talking with a startup, and seeing a demo of what they can do.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. There's nothing like like talking to a startup founder or somebody involved in a startup company to really get the ideas generated.
Hmm.
It's just a whole different, group of people. It's a different thought process, and I think they're great. I enjoy visiting with them as well.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
You're looking at them to help you guys innovate, right? To bring their products in. Are their products a fit
for where you guys are trying to go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so what we normally find is or not, that I shouldn't say that. Not what we normally find. What we have found in some circumstances is that a startup will come in and they will blow you out of the water with the slickest PowerPoint presentation you've ever seen.
Yeah,
Um,
they're good at that, aren't they?
and when you kind of get under the covers a little bit, you find that it's all theoretical. They're very early on in the stages, and in some circumstances, we're good with that. If the vision is good and the technology is sound, and we see a path, we really try to be diligent about having a diverse innovation portfolio. So having companies that are a little bit more established, maybe have done hundreds of pilots before and really are production ready, all the way down to we've been customer number one for two different startups that are in our portfolio where we believed in the founder. They had a great vision. The use case and the business case were sound, and we said, "Yep, let's do this. We'll be customer number one and help iterate through this."
Wow, that's pretty bold for a insurance carrier. Pretty brave.
Yeah, well, and again, it's not huge risks, right? So taking a little bit of an agile approach, we definitely take little bites at a time and make sure we're heading in the right direction. So we're not biting off huge chunks at a time.
And so we've understood that you are partnered with a company called Rev One.
Yeah.
Tell us about who they are and what that partnership is and how that fits into what we're talking about.
Absolutely, yeah. So Rev One is a startup studio, and they're actually located here in Columbus, Ohio, as well. And they do things on the venture side, and then more recently, over the last couple years, they've started to do corporate sponsorships, taking that expertise that they have developed on the venture side, and as a startup studio and an accelerator to help these companies grow. They've taken that domain expertise and said, "Hey, we could really partner with companies that want to engage and interact with startups, but don't necessarily have that expertise in house." And we really saw a great opportunity for a partnership there. Given their locality, most of the time when we meet, it's face to face, and we have weekly touch base meetings on the deal flow. But they really bring tremendous expertise and have really helped us to refine our process for identifying and evaluating potential partners. And we were able to get off the ground and running and get up that learning curve with tremendous speed due to their guidance and their help in setting up that process.
And what if you reflect on it, what are the kinds of things that they specifically that they helped with, or even generally? I mean, what comes to your mind when you think about the contribution that they've made on a big picture level?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the main goals of working with Rev One is to make sure that when we do engage a startup and we actually take time from our business leaders to interact with them, that they've already kind of been vetted in terms of it's not flight by night. They've got a competent leadership, competent founder, sound business case, sound use cases. And so Rev One actually does an initial screening call with every company before we talk to them, and they've also helped us identify, potential knockout questions so that we can just ask those right off the bat instead of asking it at the end of the demo, for example, or not thinking to ask it until it's gone up the flagpole and we've had several demos.
Right, right. When it's down the road a little
Mhm.
bit, but getting that decision much earlier on.
Yeah, yeah. So they've been a great partner. Again, they helped us sort of set up that front door that I talked about that we want our core innovation team to be, and they have done so much. Again, our innovation team here at Grange is only three dedicated resources. The Rev One team has done a ton to allow us to maximize our abilities. And I think we formally launched in April. So timing wise, it hasn't been that long. It's only been 4 months, but we've already accumulated over 200 qualified leads of companies that we think could be strategically relevant and good partners. We've had calls or evaluated over 100 of those and moved on to a demo phase with, I think, a little over 30 of those companies already. So without their guidance and their expertise, we would have been much slower and not been able to hit the ground running.
That's a lot of demos.
It
I mean,
is. It is.
that's demos, not of course being the same thing as a pilot, but we've been involved in many pilots. We've been active in the space
Hmm.
on the claims side for some time, for a few years, and pilots can take a lot of time, a lot of
Hmm.
energy, a lot of focus, a lot of attention, for sometimes less than stellar results. How do you manage all that?
Yeah, you hit on a huge lesson learned that was an epiphany to us very early on, probably within the first several weeks. And the term that we coined internally amongst ourselves was death by demo. And what ended up happening was, maybe we were very conscious about trying to be fast and interact and match the pace of the startups and these founders that we were talking to. And so if they wanted to do a demo, but only one of the two or three key stakeholders in the business was available, um, one was out on vacation, or the scheduling didn't work, we would actually do the demo one, two, three times. And then inevitably, one of those key stakeholders says, "This is cool, but there are two other guys, two other gals in the business that should see this too and opine on it." And so now we're doing demo number 5. And now we're actually working against the speed factor. And more importantly, when we're trying to accommodate uh, the founders of these startups who are incredibly busy, we've actually taken up more of their time instead of less of it. And so the approach that we take with demos is we've actually identified a team of innovation coordinators. So these are folks within the company. There's one that represents each business unit. And those folks are sort of spokes on the wheel, the hub that myself and my two colleagues form as the core team. And they're allocated maybe 10 to 20% of their time to innovation, but they review all the deal flow with us as it comes in, all the leads, and they're responsible for vetting with the folks in their business the solution, and then who identifying all the key stakeholders. And we will not have a demo until every single one of those key stakeholders is available. So if it means that we do have to delay the demo for 3 weeks, or even a month, we'll choose to do that now, to avoid, again, that death by demo. And now the startup company knows, all right, this is the shot. I've got all the key stakeholders, all the decision makers at the table, and that has worked really well for us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I can't tell you how many times I've sat through a demo and thought, man, I wish so and so was here, or if I had put more thought into it. So I think what you're doing there, making sure that you think about who should be in the room and then making them be in the room, it saves everybody time and helps the process
Hmm.
go so much smoother. What other lessons have you learned through this process?
Thanks for asking. I would say another one has been how we define success for an innovation project. And having being a finance background, I enjoy formulas. So the formula that we preach is success equals the quality of the solution or the quality of the technology times the level of adoption. And what I mean by that is we have had, on multiple occasions, really slick demos, really slick technology. And we as the innovation team get super pumped about it. So we say to ourselves, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait till we show this to the business. They are going to love this. We might as well just go straight to negotiating a statement of work for a proof of concept or a pilot." And having that integration with the business and being able to assess their interest and the level of adoption that it might get up front has been really amazing, because what we've learned is that the amazing tech doesn't win when we already have a sound or efficient process in place. So we find this amazing tech that our team is salivating over. And when we bring it to the business, our goal is to really assess what level of adoption, what level of traction do we think this can get with them. And And what we found is that the amazing tech does not always win. In fact, it doesn't win when we already have a sound process in place. And the reason for that is that the leaders in the business are very honest to say, look, I cannot articulate a strong enough why we should adopt this new technology when we already have a process that's working in place. And it almost comes back to the if it's not broke, don't fix it. But really being mindful of not just the quality of the solution, but the level of adoption that we think we can get with the business is how we think we can have the highest probability of success and the most successful solution. And too often, I think people focus on just what they can control and the solution that they're delivering, and not how it's going to be received, and coaching or educating the folks who will be using it on why they should adopt it.
Yeah, because if people aren't bought in, then it's probably going to fail.
Absolutely, absolutely, and so we've been able to cut those off at the pass with a couple of companies we've engaged with, simply by putting that front and center when we're talking about engaging and partnering with a company.
Are you guys doing this in specific areas of the company? Like I know you have a big focus on claims,
Mhm.
but are you using it elsewhere? Is this across the enterprise
It is.
innovation? I mean, is any department open to this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I would say that again, innovation is open to all, and so we market ourselves as strategic enablers to the business, not as disruptors to the business. We do want to be business driven with the decisions that we make and the things that we hunt for out in the marketplace, and bring back to them to see if they want to eat or not. But what I would add to that as well is that I think you have to really be able to explain the why to the business unit, of why they should engage with you. And so,
They have to be a little bit dubious. I mean, they have to look at you and say, is he going to hurt? Is he going to hurt
yeah,
us? Is he going to ruin our business? Everything's okay. Why doesn't he leave us alone?
yeah,
I mean, I bet some people in the organizations can see you guys walking down the hallway and think, "Uh-oh, we're in trouble now."
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the crown jewels of any organization are always going to be the hardest thing to get to and the hardest thing to move. And the way we try to approach that is almost like any kind of storytelling. We want to paint the commercial lines or personal lines or the claims department. They're the hero in the story, and what we're trying to educate them on is an opportunity, or a problem that they're facing and how we can help them solve it. So the innovation team steps in as their guide to help them overcome that problem or help them achieve that outcome that they want, the objectives that they've set for the year, or their strategic roadmap over the next 5 years. And so if we can come in and treat them like Luke Skywalker and play the role of Yoda, that's a little bit of the approach that we take in that.
That is the first Star Wars shout out we've had on our podcast. That's really cool.
That is true.
That was great. Thank you for doing that. It's about time that ice was
Yeah,
broken.
absolutely. I'm glad I could do it.
Brent, I want to ask a question. So you talked about your formula, right? Success equals quality of solution times level of
Mhm.
adoption. So I want to talk a little bit about level of adoption. So from demos into pilot into actual uh, product of being used. Talk to us a little bit about pilots or actually getting people on board, because you have a vision. You have seen this software or this technology and you say, we need this and it will do X. So now I need to get my level of adoption up.
Yep.
What do you do next? What is that like?
Yeah, very good question. So, part of it is being very deliberate about the expectations that you're setting and being very as clear as you can, because sometimes it is a little bit fuzzy around your demand on their capacity and their resources as part of the pilot. So, if they don't have any skin in the game, and or if you're surprising them with new asks, or you said it's going to take 10 hours and I'm sorry, it's actually going to take 40 hours, you're turning them off immediately. I think the other way we help drive adoption is that they're actually involved every step of the way. As soon as we've identified a qualified lead, we're not having a call with them until our innovation coordinators are socializing that within their business unit. And so they are, for all intents and purposes, the kill switch in every conversation that we engage in with a potential startup partner. And because of that, because they're empowered to be that, we have found the engagement from the business and the adoption has been excellent. Now, I'll also say that again, we're very new in the process, and so we've got 7 proofs of concept going on right now. Three pilots, so we don't have a huge sample size, but I will say that we've had tremendous interest and engagement from the business, and that one of those companies that we've had several successful pilots with is actually productionized and has been adopted as part of the
Wow.
company.
Well, congratulations.
Very, very quick. That's great.
Yeah, that's quick since April.
Mm-hmm.
That's speed of light in the insurance industry.
And to be fully transparent, this was actually more of an organic company that, so we were doing things behind the scenes before we officially launched with Rev One in April. So they were a company that we had actually made a little bit of progress with before that formal announcement in April. So I don't want to take too much credit. I got to set the proper expectations. But we probably were engaged with this company for about a year before we productionized it.
We know that you have a high opinion of drones. And
Not recent,
we know
most
that.
recently, most recently, yes.
Most recently, and I would say that we like drones.
Right.
Would you agree, Lee? I mean, we see them as a tool in the tool belt. That's the expression that I hear Lee use frequently to talk about drones. That they're a tool in the tool belt. That they're not an end all be all, but they're a legitimate tool for us. Let's talk about drones for a minute. Why are you guys excited about drones? What is it about drone or drone technology or drone enabled technology that you guys like?
Well, I would say that we weren't always super excited about drones, but the technology has actually come a long way recently, in our opinion. In particular, as a tool in the tool belt for the adjuster, exactly as you articulated it. Now, while the technology has matured, the regulatory aspects maybe haven't matured as fast as the tech, or as fast as we would like. But as the tech's matured, we were able to conduct a pilot recently, and in Indiana, a large hailstorm blew through. And through the use of drones, we were able to inspect 53 properties in less than 48 hours. And not just inspect them, but actually have the sketches provided and estimates drawn up. So 53 properties in 48
Wow.
hours. If an adjuster had to climb on those roofs, they're normally handling 8 to 10 per day. So it's much faster. But then in addition to that, it's safer. There's also a better overall customer experience, potentially for the policyholder, so they don't have to have an adjuster knock on their door. They don't have to have the fear of someone climbing up on their roof if they have anxiety over that. And so it's just all around a product that is really a great tool we found for the adjuster and for the customer and for us as well as an organization.
I like that. I am curious on the number of man hours that went into inspecting that many roofs and getting everything completed. Was it was it comparable to the same as sending an adjuster? Were there more people doing it, or were you able to use less man hours total?
Yeah, we were able to use less man hours total as a result of that. So instead of having, and again, some of our adjusters are based here in Columbus, Ohio, and so to have them, go out to Indiana and have to travel and be away from home, we were able to deploy fewer overall adjusters with the use of the drones.
Wow. Well, that's really nice. So, do you feel as though the drone technology has really made it to where it's useful to trust the measurements and the photos that it's taken?
Well, I don't want to step outside my bounds in areas of domain expertise, so I
Mhm.
wouldn't necessarily be able to opine on that again as a as a former accountant. But what I've heard from the claims or our claims folks does seem to validate that. But I wouldn't necessarily want to opine on that specifically.
Yeah, well, we have interviewed numerous people with the drones and the technology over the past couple of years. If you look at the past 5 years, it's light years ahead. And even if you look at the past year, the technology just keeps getting better and better. And I would say that the drone technology for me really been about as good as it has been, but it's the technology behind the computer software that has really made it a very useful tool when adjusting claims quickly. So that kudos to y'all for going out there and testing it out. And I'm glad it was very successful for
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So innovation through startups and the technology that they bring is cool and obviously central to what you're doing. But are you also innovating in other ways? Are you also bringing other types of innovation just then new technology?
Yeah. So, and this kind of goes down the machine learning path a little bit, but in again, it's kind of staying on the claims value chain. Fraud analytics is an area where we've also seen huge improvements in the technology that's out there, leveraging big data, leveraging machine learning, and there's the ability now to look at a photograph that gets submitted from a policyholder and being able to tell, oh, that was pulled off of Auto Trader, or we found that on Google Images, or maybe even the same photo was submitted different times by different people, or moreover, you could take the same picture of a fender bender from different angles, and the technology can determine that's the same bumper. You just changed the angle that you took the picture from. And so having that technology built into our upfront fraud analytics has really shifted us as an industry, I would say, even from being very reactive in terms of fraud detection to being proactive. And what I've been really impressed by too is that the technology just doesn't start flashing a red light and attacking the person. The technology can say, all right, I'm 65% confident that this could potentially be fraudulent. And so what I'm actually going to do is ask a couple leading questions and really try to refine my probability that this is fraudulent. And so you ask another question and then you ask another question, because the first time the person submitted it, for example, it went right through and the claim got paid. But now, okay, the process feels different. I'm getting asked questions that I didn't get asked before. And what we found is that the theory that we're looking to prove, I should say, is that the policyholder is going to actually stop the claim process, the claim submission process. But then it's not just that sort of behavioral economics that's taken into play. You can also look at other factors and augment that fraud data with the fact that, okay, we have a customer relationship management tool, and this person has been our customer for 25 years and never submitted a claim. So how do we factor that into the claim submission process as well? So we're really excited with the possibilities in the fraud detection space.
Well, we have one more question we want to throw
Sure.
at you before we go today. And that is, you've been running around in this innovation space now for a little while, and obviously, like you said, you've touched 200 different companies and opportunities. What do you see for the future? What you said you're excited about
Mhm.
machine learning. Where do you suppose this is going for your company? What's exciting? What do you see out there in the future that gets your pulse up?
Yeah, I don't know if this will be. I'm going to paint with a broad brush here, but it's what I'm really excited about, and that is using these emerging technologies, partnering with these innovative companies to deliver solutions. I think automation is sometimes viewed as a bad word, but intelligent automation
Right.
is the thing I'm most excited about, because what we can do is make our associates feel more fulfilled in their jobs, tamp down that back office work, any paper pushing, and really let them nurture and develop critical skill sets, that the human element of problem solving, of emotional intelligence, of critical thinking. And in doing that, and allow using the technology to make our associates more impactful and feel more fulfilled, that in turn translates directly to our customers and our policyholders that they're interacting with and having touch points with, and making the process more efficient for them as well, and allowing our talented associates to engage and interact with them the way they want to interact.
That sounds awesome.
That's the utopian state.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Well, the good thing is is that in our industry, we're all devoted to making that happen. It
Mhm.
just might happen slowly,
Oh
but it's
yeah, very very much so.
but this is the insurance industry. But we're working along, and people like you are at the forefront of a really exciting time. We had a conversation recently with Adam Kostecki from Amica, and talking all about innovation and innovation as a practice inside of carriers. And I think we're going to see more and more of this as the opportunities become clear. And you see it now. There's an abundance of different cool ways to go here.
Very much so.
Uh, Choosing the right one that's smart for your company and most effective for your company is much easier said than done.
Yeah. Choosing what not to do is
It's just as
yes, very
important,
much so.
maybe more important,
Very much
right?
so.
I mean, out of 200, if 2 or 3 work, that's a lot. That's probably a pretty good batting
Yeah.
average. This isn't Major League Baseball here.
Yeah,
So,
it's that there's or not a paradox, I should say, in terms of the value that innovation brings, right? And understanding there's a J curve to that, where you've got to have a lot of learning and a lot of failure up front to increase that batting average over time. So I love that analogy that you used.
well, we wish you well with your batting average. And we thank you so much for being with us today. I have to shout out some people in your claim
Yeah.
department who connected us to you and made this happen. So thank you to Chris in claims. And we appreciate you generously being with us today. I hope it was good for you.
It was fantastic. So I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Good. And next time we're in Columbus, we're going to come see you and take a look in your laboratory.
Absolutely.
And innovate.
Yes, please swing on by.
Will do.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
You too.
I liked Hammer Time.
Yeah, I thought it was a great time. I think it'll be a hit.
Do you now? Do you?
I do.
We don't have
I
to
do.
deal with many hits on the FNO InsureTech podcast.
No.
That's yeah. Hits is not our thing. But what we are about is learning about how innovation teams work. And
Yeah.
it was great to have Brent on and to hear all about that.
Yeah, I really enjoy always getting to hear about what they do and what their process is.
Mhm.
I was very interested in the discussion about Rev One
Right.
and how they go through finding companies and
Right.
sorting through them, because it is a lake full of different solutions, and it's really difficult to find the right one at the right time.
And this kind of gets to something about innovation and innovation inside of these companies. It's a new thing. And now we learn that there's even a company out there, Rev One, who
Mhm.
can provide support to an innovation team to help innovation teams do their work. Fascinating world that's emerging there. And we thank Brent for giving us the time to give us more insight and depth around innovation in the insurance space. And we thank everybody for being with us today. Ask you, as always, to subscribe to our podcast and be a member of our community. We're on all social platforms as well. So look us up, and we'll leave it to Lee to take us home. Should I do?
Goodbye.
Should I do Hammer Time in the background?
Yeah,
Do,
yeah,
do,
yeah,
do,
go ahead.
do, 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 do,
Goodbye, everyone.
do, 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 do.